Day is basically upon us. And all the loves in the air. You gotta say it like this. Love. The love.
Come on, DR. I don't know the cheerful. What are you?
It's just another day for me, you know. I have a date with my cat. I gotta get someone, you know. Until I have that someone special, it's just another ordinary day. But we celebrate love in all different shapes and forms, you know, with your significant other, with your friends, with your family, with God, you know. But this morning I want to talk to you about what is love. What is love? Now, I'm not talking about the song, What is Love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me. Okay, I had to do that because every time I wrote this, What is Love, that would be playing in the background of my mind. So we've got that out of the mind, right? It's not about that. We're not talking about that this morning. But what is love? What is love to you? You know, if we look at the world's idea of love, it's very different. If we look at the world's understanding of what love is, we see that it's very interchangeable. Like one day you can love something, but then the next day you fall out of love. I do that with my food. You know, one day I really, really love this kind of chocolate bar, so I buy like 10 of them, right? Well, then the next day I'm so tired of that chocolate bar that I don't want it anymore. Our world's idea of love is that it's great for one day and you can be so in love with one person, and the next day you're like, I'm done with you, put you on the shelf. That's the world's idea of love. And the world says this is what love looks like. With Valentine's Day approaching, we know that people are looking to spend a lot of money to show that they love someone. If you don't buy a gift for someone on Valentine's Day, you look like you don't love them, right? That you don't care about them. Love looks like expensive flower arrangements. Love looks like jewelry. It looks like fancy dinners with all the forks and all the spoons that will get you all confused. Love looks like giant teddy bears that just sit in the corner of the room collecting dust. That's what the world says that love looks like. That's what the mainstream media wants us to think, that love is like this big pink fluffy heart stuff, and it's so great. And it's got this ginormous price tag on it. That's what the world wants us to think love is. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying these things are bad. You know, I love getting flowers, I love jewelry. I would love to get a giant teddy bear that's bigger than me. I'm not saying these things are bad, but when we make it out to be that these are a symbolism of love, and only this is a symbolism of love, then we have a problem. We are measuring someone's love based on presents or price tags, and our idea of love is then distorted if we measure love that way. You know, especially when we look at the Bible to see what it says about love. The world's ideas of love says spend all the money, get the biggest bow ever, post it on social media for all the world to see so we can get all the likes, like, look, we did Valentine's Day, someone loves me. That is the world's idea of love. But I think the biblical idea of love is more like a drive-through, pay-it-forward kind of love. Now hold on for a minute. Someone's phone's ringing, but I think the biblical kind of love is like a drive-through, pay-it-forward kind of love. Has anybody ever experienced it where you're in the drive-through and the person in front of you pays for your order? Yes. That makes you feel good, right? That is what the biblical type of love should be like. It shouldn't be loud and boisterous. You don't know that that person paid for your order until you get to the window, right? They don't honk their horn, flash their lights, making you know, I paid for your order. No, they don't do that. You don't find out that they paid for your order until they've already driven away. You know, you'll probably never meet that person. You'll probably never get to say thank you. But that kind of is what the biblical standard of love should be. It should be simple and kind and easy and not proudful. See, when you get to that window and you find out that someone has paid for your order, doesn't it make you feel good? Doesn't it make you want to feel like you want to pass it on to someone else? You want to spread the love. You want to spread the generosity. But today we're going to be looking at what love is in 1 Corinthians 13, verses 4 to 8. 1 Corinthians 13, 4 to 8. Now, while you're turning there this morning, we need to add a little context to this scripture we are reading today. We see that Paul wrote an eye-opening letter to the church of Corinth. And if we look at Paul's word in the chapter before, it is likely that the people of Corinth were busy comparing their contributions to the church and judging each other's values based on a person's gift. Wow. So we see that in the chapter before, Paul is telling the people, it doesn't matter about your gifts. It doesn't matter about this. He's saying that every part of the body is important, and he emphasizes the need for unity in the church. Paul lifts the gifts and encourages the believers to give their best. And he ends it in chapter 12 with this. He says, and I will show you still more an excellent way. In chapter 13, it shows us that just as excellent as those gifts are, love is way better. Just as great as that jewelry is, love is way better. That just as great as those flowers are for the 4 days that they live, love is way better. That just as good as that 4-star restaurant dinner that you had and you saved all month for, just as good as that food will last until the next day, love is way more better. We see that there's gifts that he talks about to the church of Corinthians. They're great, but love is way better. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So 1 Corinthians 13, verses 4 to 8, and I know we all know this. We probably all have a picture on our wall with these verses. But hold on for a second. We all probably could just name this off. We could rhyme it off, right? But do we really apply these words to ourselves? To what the love we give to people? So I want you this morning to look at the words that we're saying. Look at them. Don't just do it based off your memory. But look at what Paul is saying love is. Verse 4, it says, love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but it rejoices with truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. You see, love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. Those gifts that he talked about, they'll pass away, but the love will never, ever fail. So what is love? There are three things I want to point out from these verses. And first off, we see that it clearly shows us what love is. Like if we look closely to the wording, it clearly says love is this. Love is that. It tells us what love is supposed to be. And the kind of love that Paul describes in 1 Corinthians 13, sometimes it's really hard for us to imagine, because the love that he talks about is perfect. And we're not perfect. It's hard for us to understand this love because we are not perfect. I don't know about you, but I am far from perfect. Oh, so far. But I want my love that I have for people to be perfect. I don't want to be perfect, but I want my love for others to be perfect. So sometimes this love is hard for us to imagine or comprehend because it is perfect. And many times we falter as human beings. But in chapter 13, we see what love is. And it says love is patient. Love is kind. And jumping ahead, it says love rejoices in truth. Love always protects. It always trusts. It always hopes. It always perseveres. And love never fails. I want us to just stop for a moment and say, do I love like this? Do I love like this? Do I love like this in my marriage? Do I love like this in my relationship with my kids? Do I love like this in a relationship with my parents? Do I love like this in my friendships? Do I love like this with my significant others? Do I love like this with God? Love never fails. We do, yes. We fail. We will constantly be failing because that's just who we are. That's our human nature. But if we have a love like this in our hearts, it will never fail. So the first attribute of love we are going to be looking at today is patient. I know, Danny, I just saw that face. Love is patient. Oh, you guys know that I love this word so much, right? You know that I'm the most patient person in the world. Not at all. It's actually funny because this week I've been waiting for something to arrive. And I was talking to someone and I said, you know, God is really testing my patience. And she said, no, God's not testing your patience. He's building up the anticipation in your heart for what is coming. And just like that, I was like, whoa, mind blowing. Like my whole view on patience and waiting just changed in that moment. That God is not testing my patience, but he is building up that anticipation for when that thing comes. And see, when you love someone, you're patient with them. And when you're patient with someone, that gives an opportunity for that anticipation to build within you. You know, our modern world is not a friendly setting for living with patience. It's really not. We have grown insistent on the instant. We have grown insistent on the instant. You know, we have instant oatmeal. Who eats instant oatmeal here? We have instant coffee. That's not coffee. That's just, yeah, it's not nothing. Don't drink it, okay? It's not good for you. Instant coffee is not good, okay? It's instant, but that's it. But we have instant information. We can Google anything and get answers in seconds. You know, I remember when dial-up was a thing and you would try to Google something and it would be like 5 minutes. Now, if it doesn't happen in 1 second, we're like, oh my goodness, we gotta unplug the thing and make it go faster. We can get information in an instant. You know, we can have instant money. I can send money to you and you can send money to me, and it's in there in an instant. We have instant gratification. For those of you who have Facebook or Instagram or whatever, when you post something, you wait for someone to like it. I got 1 like today, guys, that's so great. And then you get 100, and it's like, wow! Instant gratification we have right on hand. When we want to feel loved, we post it online. We have instant popularity in the same way. That we wait for those likes to come. We wait for them to come. We wait for people to share our stories or to share our stuff, right? We have instant popularity. You know, this instant pot culture we have created often leaves us impatient with the things that aren't instant. Like our spouses. They ain't instant. Like our kids. They ain't instant. Like our friends. Oh gosh, and they are not instant. Like our parents. I'm not even going to touch that one this morning. But we get so impatient because we build up this instant pot mentality that everything happens so fast that when someone is taking forever, we get annoyed. And sometimes we're like that with God. When He doesn't give us an answer right away, we're like, oh, we get frustrated, so we go to another source that is instant, right? To get what we want. We even try to have instant love. Valentine's Day is here. It's right on us. And so many people, they're just craving love that they don't care who they spend Valentine's Day with. They want that instant love in their life. But we see that love is not instant. It is patient. Love is not instant, it is patient. The word patient means to be able to accept or tolerate delays, problems, or suffering without becoming annoyed or anxious. Did anybody get annoyed this past week with someone? Your patience were tested. Yeah. Love is patient. See, love in its truest form, the person in the life of Jesus Christ gives us perfect model of patience. He is the perfect model of patience. You know, when the men and women were following him and they didn't understand what he was saying, he didn't get flustered and walk away annoyed. He practiced patience. When the religious leaders looked down on him for how he served, he showed patience. When the crowds of people condemned and crucified him, Jesus in every instance showed perfect patience. And yet, we get annoyed when we have to wait an extra minute in the Tim Hortons drive-thru. Jesus was condemned and crucified, and yet he showed patience. You know, one time, a lot of my sermons have a lot to do with coffee, I'm sorry. But one time I was in the Tim Hortons drive-thru in Tempsford, as I normally am almost every day. And I'm there, and I'm in a hurry as usual because, I'm not the best patient person in the world. I don't have patience, but God's working on that. But I'm in the drive-thru, and I'm getting really impatient. Like, the car in front of me is taking forever. Forever. Like, forever. Like, I'm saying, like, about 8 to 10 minutes forever. And as it is, I was already in a rush, and now I'm already late, and I'm like, okay, let's go. Come on, let's keep it moving. Like, I'm getting frustrated. I'm getting annoyed. And then, who knows that God has a sense of humor?
Amen. Yeah.
So finally, this car moves, and I go up to the window. Turns out that car that I was frustrated with had paid for my order. It's like, man, okay, God, I get the point. I get what you're trying to tell me, that I need to be patient. Because that person, they knew they were taking a long time. Maybe they saw that I was frustrated, I don't know. But maybe they just wanted to do something out of the kindness of their heart and pay for my order. And then God showed me, okay, Destiny, you gotta work on your patience. See, when you're patient, there's a reward. When you're patient, the anticipation builds up within you. Love is being patient. And one way that we can strive for that perfect kind of love in our lives is to strive to be like Jesus. Because he is what love is. So in that moment, I stopped getting frustrated when people take forever. I'm like, okay, God, I'm going to show the love of Christ. I'm going to be like Jesus today and not get frustrated. I'm going to be patient because that is what love is. Now, the second attribute of love we're going to look at today is love is kind. You guys are so quiet this morning. Are you awake? You're sleeping? Okay, here we go. Love is kind. Simple, right? It sounds so simple. Love is kind, but yet we overcomplicate it again. The Greek word translated for kind means useful. Kind means useful. Kindness strives to show love being helpful in practical ways. We see numerous times where Jesus extended kindness that was considered radical during the time and culture. He offered kindness to people most would, turn away or not even want to be associated with. He extended kindness to the sick. He extended kindness to the poor. He extended kindness to the outcasts that no one wanted to be associated with. Now, our modern day world, it may look very different than biblical times. We don't see sick people laying out on the road because they're sick. But some things never change. We still live in a world that is divided by personal opinions and human selfishness. Therefore, we overcomplicate the phrase, love is kind. Because we live in a society that says love is what I can get out of it. Love is what is best for me. But the Bible says love is kind. Love is being useful for someone else. It is being helpful. It's the mentality of what can I do for someone else and get nothing in return. Love is kind. Now this past week I had an encounter where I thought, wow, this is what true love is. Love is kind. I've been having a real issue with my debit card. The chip on my debit card has not been working. So I would go somewhere and I'd try to pay and it would get declined. I'm like, I have money. What is going on? The tap would work, but the chip wouldn't work. So here I am one day and I'm needing gas. Like I am just about ready to run out of gas. So I'm at the gas station and here we go. Once again, my card does not work. I'm like, oh, come on. It's very embarrassing when you have a lineup of people and your card is not working. Yeah, it's happened to me like 5 times this week, guys. It's very embarrassing, not once, but 5 times. So here I am in the store, and I'm like, okay, well, I have cash in my car. I'm going to run out and get cash. So I run to my car, I come back in the store, and I go to pay for my gas. And the girl's like, are you from number 4, the white car? And I was like, yeah. She's like, well, the guy behind you paid for your gas. And I was like, what? I was like, no way. I mean, I only got $20. I should have got 40, but still, I was like, oh my goodness. And that made me tear up because I live in such a great community in Thamesford that someone out of the kindness of their heart would pay for my $20 of gas. And we talked about that kind means useful, and then that moment, that man's kindness was so useful to my need. I needed gas to get me to Woodstock so I could go to the bank and get my card fixed. But we see that kindness is being useful. Love is being kind. When you love someone, are you being useful? There was a story I read about how a grandmother and the grandchildren were sitting at their kitchen table. And the grandpa comes in from working outside, and the grandma is insisting that the grandpa sit down and relax. And the grandpa's like, no, I'm good, I'm fine. And the grandma's like, yes, no, you need to sit down, you need to relax. And he's like, no, I'm fine. And then they keep going back and forth, yes, no, sit down, no, okay. And finally the grandpa says, well, why don't you stand up then? And the grandchildren all laugh, and they're like, because sometimes what we think is useful for someone else really is not. See, that grandpa, he wanted to keep working. He didn't want to stop. He didn't want to be idle. But the grandma thought that she was being helpful. We need to make sure that the love that we show is actually useful for the person we are trying to love.
Amen.
Love is kind.
Amen.
We see that Jesus loved in action, and being kind is actionable. We need to put the love of Jesus into action in a kind, practical, useful way towards people in need. So one way we can strive for that perfect kind of love in our life is to strive to be like Jesus, because he is what love is. The third attribute of love we are looking at today is how love rejoices in the truth. See, true love rejoices in what is right and good. Anything that covers up sin or seeks to justify wrongdoings is the polar opposite of a godly love. See, love does not sweep sin under the rug. Love does not try to find ways to get away with bad behavior. It does not put up with injustice. Instead, it treasures truth. It celebrates good behavior. It promotes virtue. True love has nothing to hide. Further to say, not to delight in evil carries the idea of not gloating over someone else's guilt. It is common for people to rejoice when an enemy is found guilty of crime or caught in sin, right? You know, if we don't like someone, well, whoever they might be, when we hear that they got in trouble for something or they got a speeding ticket, we're like, yes, they deserve it. Well, that's not a godly love. Love rejoices in the virtue of others, not in their vices. Sin is an occasion for sorrow, not for joy. See, basically, to exhibit God's kind of love, we must have God's perspective on sin and righteousness. The better we understand love, the more we will sorrow over those who commit sin. The more we love truth, the better we can love those around us. You know, many times Jesus was found amongst the sinners. You know, but he did not sin himself. See, he didn't let the culture change him, but he let himself change the culture. He spoke the truth. And we need to rejoice in the truth to change our culture. When we find people that we don't like or we don't like their sin, it's not time for us to rejoice and compare our life to their life. But it's our time to speak truth to them so that they can change their ways and not just sweep it under the rug. But one way we can strive for that perfect kind of love in our lives is to strive to be like Jesus, because he is what love is. Now for the next few attributes of love, because we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to speak fast. You better listen fast, and here we go. The next few attributes of love, it is important to take note that Paul changes his wording here. I don't know if you noticed this, but he goes from what love is to love always. He goes from what love is, you know, love is patient, love is kind, to going to love always protects. It always trusts. It always hopes. It always perseveres. Always means all times, on all occasions. You know, many times I have said this, what does all mean? All means all. It always means always. There is no shadow of doubt when Paul says always, love is always supposed to be these things. See, love is a full-time job. Love doesn't get a 15-minute break. When you sign that marriage certificate, you're signing that for life. You're not signing it for when your husband doesn't annoy you, when your wife is not nagging you. Love is always. Now, where are my bakers at this morning? Who bakes here? A few of us. I try to bake, but my oven burns things. But you know, if you're a baker, that when you want to bake something, you follow a recipe, right? Now, when you go to make something, if you don't have eggs, you don't think, oh, well, I'm just going to substitute it with peanut butter. You don't go, oh, I don't have any vanilla, so I'm just going to put hot sauce in it. Like, no, there is a recipe for this cake, for these cookies that you are trying to make, and you need to follow them so that they turn out the best cookies or the best cake that you can bake, right? Well, here we see Paul gives us a recipe for love. He gives us a recipe for love, and you can't substitute trust with doubt. You can't substitute trust and hope with disbelief or dishonesty. You can't do that because love always trusts. Love always hopes. Everyone wants love, but we seem to falter in following the recipe for love. Because we want that instant love. We don't want to work at it. We don't want to buy the expensive ingredients that love is. We just satisfy for, oh, that'll do. Meanwhile, we have a cake that's flopping. We tend to substitute the ingredients instead of paying the full price for the expensive ingredients. And maybe that's the reason why our divorce rate is so high. Maybe it's because we try to substitute the attributes of love with attraction. Maybe we try to substitute the attributes of love with money. Maybe we try to substitute it with appearance. Oh, well, he looks good. Yes, that's husband material. Maybe we try to substitute the attributes of love for status or for the quality of life that we want. You know, we think money means protection, but it doesn't. Love always protects. See, true love doesn't just give up when the going gets tough, but it perseveres. See, the true attributes of love don't fade, but all that other window dressing, you know, the good looks, the good job, the nice car, all that other stuff fades. But if you find someone with the attributes of love, that always protects, that is kind, that always trusts, it ain't gonna fade away. But that hairdo, that good beard, that nice figure, that changes, right? That window dressing fades and changes, but those true attributes of love will never fade. Because love always protects. It always trusts. It always hopes. It always perseveres. And now when we follow that recipe of love, that it always protects, that it always trusts, that it always hopes, that it always perseveres, when we follow that recipe exact, we see that love never fails.
Amen.
We see that love never fails. So you know how when you're following a recipe, there's usually a picture, right? Of what your making is supposed to turn out like. You know, you kind of strive that your cake is going to look like that. You strive that your cookies are going to look like that after you scrape the burnt off. But you always have that image of what you want it to be like, right? Well, Jesus is our reference point.
Yes.
He is the image of love that we should be striving to achieve. He is our reference point for love. And one way we can strive for that perfect kind of love in our life is to strive to be like Him. Because He is what love is.
Thank you.
Now you'll notice, I only talked about what love is today. I only talked about the good things. Next week we're going to talk about what love is not. Because Paul clearly shows us what love is and what it is not. So next week we're going to carry on and we're going to pick right up again and talk about what love is not. Now it kind of works out that way because it's after Valentine's Day, right? So you can't get in trouble. But next week we're going to talk about that. So I ask you to come forth next week expecting God to do something great. And remember what love is.
Amen.
It looks like Jesus.